Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek! We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula gider. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is squad, and that also means elephant. Okay. 10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Come on. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bambas. Bamba. Okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon. I buy a computer or quack. And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hok in Hogun in Korean or Waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character. Oh, I see. This is Dikhe Ishai Pui, which means do you want food? But yeah, are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cocine da boy. Posso Milao. Pote. When is it? Proteine. Utros. Protoculo. In the designated chicken-eating area, obviously.
Li. Monsieur.
See.
Livre. Liwe, livre.
Maciej.
Yeah.
Sí. Wysoki. Maciej. Proč? Inter. Počkej. A. Sí.
Oedden coginio panas.
Jacob. Hefed. 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 Haq. 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 Mwalimu.
This is Arabic. And it's from Mu'allim.
Juma ni mwalimu mke.
Oh, thanks to cat sons. Meow and the pictures of the fish. They were proud.
스프 후부 그립다 오라이스다 오메나
Are in the city center. And it's got some interesting aspects to it.
여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까?
Countries or living things.
兄の名前は
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital.
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Benedese. Her Gud och Gud. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is sword, and that also means elephant. Okay. 10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Come on. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bambas. Bamba, okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon. I buy a computer or quack. And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, but sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hok in Hogun in Korean or waku in Japanese, and that appears it is the exact same kind of character. Oh, I see. This is Dikhe Ishai Fui, which means do you want food? But yeah. Are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cocine da boy. Posso Milao. Pote. When is it? Proteine. Udros. Totopolo. In the designated chicken-eating area, obviously.
Leave.
Monsieur.
See.
Livre. Liwe, livre.
맞아요.
Yeah.
예약.
Nice.
시.
So,
SOP. 맞아요. 그렇지. 인터. 고치게. 아. 세.
Oedden coginio panas.
هقب. نفد.
Perfect.
نفد.
Perfect.
نفد. نفد. حق. 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 معلمة.
This is Arabic. And it's from Mu'allim.
Juma ni mwalimu mke.
Oh, thanks to cat sons. Meow and the pictures of the fish. That's they were proud.
슬픈. 부부. 그립다. 보라이스다. 봄에나.
Are in the city center. And it's got some interesting aspects to it.
여자는
I mean,
어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까?
countries or living things.
兄の名前は
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital.
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Ben neredeyse her gün okula gider. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is squad, and that also means elephant. Okay. 10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Come on. Yeah. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bambas. Bamba, okay, Bambas is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon. I buy a computer or quack. And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, quack sounds vaguely like Hogun and the hok in Hogun in Korean or Waku. in Japanese, and that's because it is the exact same kind of character. Hello, and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise, where we're going to be playing some GeoGuessr, maybe a bit of chess, and talking languages and stuff. Hello, Weirdo Joe, how you doing? Before we get started, I have to get the Windows set up. Actually, no, that's not what I want to do. Hang on. I know this is captivating people. La finestra. It's not quite the size I'm after. It's actually kind of the least of the problems. Make some adjustments there. Alrighty. Oh, no worries. You're not missing anything. It occurred to me when I'd already set up the countdown screen that it would be good to set these GeoGuessr windows up. A little bit differently than I usually do when I'm doing chess or another game. Extra. When I played GeoGuessr, I find that tiny little map that they have is kind of a pain. I can't see very well on it, and you can only see a little bit of what you're looking for at a time. So I am making an adjustment. GeoGuessr isn't a game I play. I have... Oh, who knows? All sorts of things. What languages are you interested in? Do you have any that you'd be interested in learning or talking about or anything like that? Single player. Oh, hang on, this isn't what I'm after. Classic maps. More maps. Let's see what we got. Hey, Rotten Mouse. A fair number of places. And chat, if you have any opinion on which map to do. Okay, first of all, you familiar with GeoGuessr? Oh, Weirdo Joe, I did see it. I did see that message. What you do in GeoGuessr is you get Google Street View, randomly selected Google Street View, and you try to work out where you are using the stuff that you can see in the Google Street View. Now, the one I usually play is World. That's my personal favorite. But there are all sorts of other options. So, for example... Okay, no problem. You can do specific countries. Personally, I like to do World because I like to figure out what country I'm in. But you can do, like, Japan or Spain or Chile or all sorts of things. But we're going to start out with some World. Yeah, my best score was actually the last time I played it. That is the best you can get is 25,000. So, I was 9 points short of a perfect score. So here we go. This feels European. Maybe Central European? Yeah, meters. Could be Poland. Hope it's not Poland. Poland's hard. They don't do enough signposting, and there are tons of little towns in the middle of nowhere. Okay, but we know so far... Yeah, I mean, I'm almost certain this is Europe. Bacqueville-en-Caux. Institut médio-professionnel La Traverse. On est en France. Okay. So... Zooming out. So we're someplace in France. Never heard of Bacqueville-en-Caux. Centrebourg des 107. Oh, I mean, France. Welcome back, Joe K. France, the difficulty is, as far as I can tell, their highway numbering system is pretty random. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Centrebourg. Okay. Well, getting to the town center might be the best option. Centrebourg suggests to me maybe northern, maybe near the border with Germany. Is that's where you tend to get these more German-sounding names like Bourg. Yeah, as far as I can tell, they don't... There's no particular system. Institut médico-professionnel La Traverse. Okay. See, I mean, GeoGuessr is also a great game for this stream because my topic, the overarching topic is language and stuff. And
GeoGuessr has both of those things. It has language and it has stuff. Bang. Okay, very, very country here. Hang on, there was a sign. There are people who can get like a perfect score without exploring. Which, first of all, is just amazing. Alice Chapelle? The name does not ring a bell. What kind of stuff does she YouTube about? Okay. Very medieval. You get 5 of these each time. Mairie Aumonville. Interesting. Aumonville. I've never heard of Aumonville. Some papier. La mousson. Avant. News. Wèvre. Wèvre. So we're after some place called Aumonville or Angot. Okay, what about the pronunciations? That's an interesting topic. Okay, Aumonville. One thing to note is the pronunciations in French vary heavily depending on on what French you're speaking. Which is to say, like, there's French that they speak in Canada. There are 2 main variants of French that are spoken in Canada. There's Acadian and there's Québécois, which have a lot in common, but they're also quite different in some respects. Marquage effacé. Oh, well, that's an easy one. That is always pronounced like an S. No matter where you see it in French, that is always an S. They didn't used to have music on GeoGuessr. Oh, hang on, there was a sign. Is that sign gonna tell me anything? Oh, wait a second, let me see. Varenville. Bacqueville-en-Caux, Aumonville, D107. Okay, I mean, another option we can have. Another option is to look for these street numbers. D643, 908, 1916. No, I don't think I did. I'm just sort of gonna go randomly through here and see if I can find any 100 numbered streets and just hope. 107. 900, 900, 900, 600, and 600. Cajun, it's worth noting, that word comes from Acadian. So the French that is spoken in like Louisiana is very closely related to the French that is spoken in Acadia, which is an area which is part of like New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. Okay, wait a second. Okay, we've got 100s. 162. But it's right next to. Wait. See, this is what I'm talking about. So you've got these 100 numbers here by Poitiers, but right next to it we've got 900 and 600. There's 150. Like there must be some way in which this makes sense, but I just do not see it. Vous, c'est pas ça qu'on cherche. 900. Yeah, there are. They're either the main ones are A numbers for autoroute, but then there's also D and N. I mean, N is route nationale, and maybe D is route départementale, but I'm not sure. 140. 170. Des 20, des 1. It would really screw me up if they are in fact départemental, because that would mean the numbering would possibly change depending on which département you're in, and I don't know which one I'm supposed to be in. So type okay, yeah. Just curious if we've got national. Numérotation. Okay, I'm just looking to see. Okay. Et là, on cherche la numérotation. La numérotation des routes françaises. X. Vu que la capitale, les départements ressemblent à des petits morceaux de territoire étaient dans le désordre. Quel ordre s'est greffé ainsi que le D6, la D947 et la N124 se rejoignent à Dax? Chercher les racines, c'est apparemment embrouillé dans la tension entre les vicissitudes de l'évolution technique ou institutionnelle et les tentatives répétées de mise en cohérence du réseau. Okay, so what I'm getting so far is that these numbers really do not make a whole hell of a lot of sense. That is not what I was hoping to find out. Okay. Oh, that's useful. Okay. So... yes, it has a lot of countries. A very pretty countryside, I would add. I have not spent a lot of time in France, but I have actually, you know, I've taken trains around it. Okay. So apparently the numbers do match up in the sense that an A road with the number 100 will hook up with a D road with the number 100. Des 1, des 60, des 60. Hey. Dans-y. 50. Ah. 24. I've heard of that. I haven't read it. Is it good? Okay, that sounds interesting. I feel like there was a movie about based on that. Okay, I've given up on trying to find the route number. I'm just gonna look to see if I can find something that tells me what region we're in. Find out what region we're in. Yerville. Commune d'Excellence. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I just feel like I've heard it. I feel like it would have been older than that. Exactly. I mean, this architecture feels like it might be near Germany. Bacqueville-en-Caux, Pierreville. Okay, another church. And there's another sign. Signs are useful sometimes. Beauville. Menuiserie, Tuier, email.com. You see, this is exactly the way I think about this game. You're getting it. That is precisely what I do. I look for the signs, I look for the area codes, look for anything that might give me a general idea of where I am. Bacqueville-en-Caux. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose I am, though that only really helps if I know what I'm heading southwest of. Sapeurs, pompiers, gendarmerie nationale. Yeah, I mean, that does not add to my understanding. They're cops and firefighters here. That really does not narrow it down. École. What's that say? Terre du Trail. Normandie! There we go. Normandie. Okay, we've got an actual region to look at. So, well. Oh, well, because there's a lot of English words that have been accepted into French. Beauville. Okay, but we know this is around Normandy. Condé en Normandie. Dire Normandie. Bagnole de l'Homme Normandie. Bagnole, apart from everything else, means like a piece of shit car. Hello. Lai. Lag. Réville. I don't feel like we're this close to the coast, or I would have seen some Argentin, Alençon, Le Mans, Monsieur. 啊，你从哪里来？我不说中文很好，但是可以度假。Okay, that's already Brittany. Easier. My speaking of Chinese is limited, but I can read it pretty well. Ne châtel en vrai, forge ou oui, yeah. Arrête, Ambry, Cody, Saint-Quentin. Oh. Oh, that's already Paris. That's like... Oh, wait. Saint-Valéry-en-Caux. Okay, that's en-Caux. So Bacqueville-en-Caux must not be far. Oakville, Sasseville, Ingouville, Bicler, Auberville, Emmanuel, Montconduit. Gaillard, La Chapelle-Certain, Ouville, La Haute-Rue, Sur-Mer. No, en-Caux, okay. Yes, okay. But we know it is... Oh, Bacqueville-en-Caux. On l'a trouvé. C'est ça. C'est Bacqueville-en-Caux, Aumonville. Ok. Et ce qu'on a vu premièrement, c'était... Ok, so on cherche... D107. On y est. We got it. Ah, tiens là. Bacqueville-en-Caux. Two points short of a perfect score. $651 meters. There we go. This feels North American. Yeah, this feels totally North American. City Court Judge. Yeah. Never heard of a city court. Let me see. What do we got? Boulanger. Oh, that's French. Yeah, we're going from one French sound. Yeah, we're going from France to a place where they've got a street named after the French word for a bakery. Yeah, definitely. This is totally North America. Possibly. Definitely, I wouldn't rule it out. But there's a French street name in Cincinnati as well. So there's a small street called Rue de la Paix. So I don't immediately assume. I like to know more. Okay, this is more of a main drag. Weather's gone to shit. Oh, here we go. That's better. Oh, okay. Good information, that. Okay, that looks like a city bus, but it's all overexposed, so I can't get much out of it. Corinne Street, Washington Street. Elm Street. Okay, what's that over there? Jervis Public Library. Okay. Whatever this place, wherever this is, it's in Jervis. Got a state flag. I mean, at this point, I'm fairly certain this is definitely the U.S. I'm not seeing anything that would tell me. Hair check for road. County legislator. Okay, that's a title I've not actually seen. It's not a state I'm familiar with. Yeah, but I don't believe we're in New York. I mean, we might be. Well spotted. There's some kinds of plates that are not state-related that are yellow, though. You can't always generalize on that. Fort Stanwick Park. What part of China are you in? Ah. Hey, River Rune.我到现在没去中国。USPS, yeah, I mean, okay, we're definitely in the US. That does not automatically tell me much more. Goeiedag. Speel een beetje GeoGuessr. Weer om uit te vinden waar ons fucking is. Mike Carl's 315 area code, Falcone Auto Sales. 315 area code, say anything to anyone in chat? Vinny. USA. Ivers. Maar is niet heel klaar niet waar. Maar precies. Egg. Okay. On the last round, I was too short of a perfect score. Which is easily one of the best scores I've ever gotten. Like Lanigan, Air for Everyone. That's such an informative thing. You know, because the other guy, I'm sure, is Air Against Everyone. Yeah, I mean, might be, but it's like... There's not a whole lot of particularly useful information yet. Very short on useful information this time. An interstate would be handy. State flag, too. Copper City Chiropractic. 315 area code is the most informative thing I've had so far, and I don't know where a 315 is. Yeah, definitely, this is... Wherever this is, it's 315. The bins tell us anything useful? No, just recycling only. Bins are often very useful for these purposes. But these are not informative bins. Yeah, why not? Big Daddy sandwiches. Oh, well, there you are. Yeah. So... Ah, Rome. Oh, wow, okay. It's not far from, actually, where my father is from. Stanwix Heights, Seifert Corner, Westernville, Cam Roden, Hampton Inn, Griffiths International, Rome Country Club, Sleepy Hollow, East Center, Empeyville, Connellsville, Vienna, Sylvan and Verona Beaches, Lairdsville, Scottish. $49.88. Just 3.6 kilometers off. Okay, this is probably Europe. Улица Революции. Okay, someplace Russian speaking. Possibly Russia, but it could be other places. Russia is a pain in the ass because there are lots of like small to medium cities in Russia with the same names. Also, this isn't necessarily Russia. There are Russian-speaking places other than Russia. Кроме служебных машин. Все в хуевом состоянии. Вот, кажется. Кажется, Россия. Что это? Raiffeisen Bank. It's a German bank. Может быть, недалеко от Москвы. Не знаю. Мишка! Аренда. Seems fairly urban. Oh, what do we got here? Avantil Telecom Company. We're gonna move towards the city center. We're more likely to find something that says what city it is. Sberbank, another bank. Yeah, definitely, I'm gonna say Russia. Оптика. И. Maybe St. Petersburg, I don't know. Very nice sort of classical architecture. Чашка кофе. Schmidt Bakery. Новосиб-экспресс. Новосибирск, может быть. Yeah. Yeah, St. Petersburg's been around a long time. Tomsk. But Novosib, I think must be Novosibirsk. Документы, посылки и грузы по России, всему миру. Het jij schakel daarvoor? Будь внимательным. Очень новые возможности. New possibilities. Днем Победы. Okay, so this is the day after my birthday. Or around it. Фильмы Победы. Okay, I can look that up, certainly. Yeah, that really does sound interesting. Put that into the hopper. Lots of English. Sibir. Okay, that also kind of suggests Novosibirsk. Okay, that's an announcement for some sort of art. Улица Большевистская, Bolshevik Street. Skuratov Coffee Roaster. Европейская обувь. Новая коллекция. Улица Советская. Кондитерский дом. Ковский. That is a caviar store. Old Astrakhan. Пункт выдачи заказов рядом. Улица Орджоникидзе. Театр под руководством Афанасьева. Музей города Новосибирска. Окей. Мы находимся точно в Новосибирске. We are in Новосибирск. $49.95. Okay, we're on 4 of 5. I immediately feel like we're in North America, but that is more of a vibe than anything. So I am right now 19 short of a perfect score for these first 3. Okay, feels like a school. Something like that. Oh wait, here we got a sign. Visitor parking, student parking. Yeah, okay, it's in English. Streets look a bit shite. So, Lakeville North High School. And yeah, Presidential School of Excellence seal here. We're in the US. And one of those totally nondescript place names, Lakeville. So, somewhere in the US. Do they even have lakes in North Dakota? Okay, looks like a major street. Lakeville North High School. Nor I. I've been just north of North Dakota. Yeah. I once took the train from Toronto to Vancouver, which is absolutely brilliant. Highly recommended. If you ever get a chance to do it, definitely worth doing. You see just incredible scenery, including a lot of stuff that you could basically only see by train because there are no roads. Okay. Speed limit 40, which tells us nothing other than what we already know, i.e. that we are not in Canada. In Canada, the signs look the same but say maximum, because it's the same in English and French. How is that? I've never taken any southern trains. The train from Cincinnati to New York and Cincinnati to Chicago and Cincinnati to DC every once in a while now. Benwood Terrace. Okay. Chicago to St. Louis is kind of a cool train ride. You go along the old Route 66 for a while. I feel like there's going to be an interstate pretty soon. Feels like the sort of area where there would be an interstate hookup someplace on here. Oh, hang on. That looked promising. Kenwood Trail middle school. Okay, bloody useless. Oh, that's handy. Get all your masonry needs minute you arrive in the city. Okay, there's gotta be an interstate around here. An interstate will narrow things down considerably. Wait, there was something there. Dakota County. You may actually turn out to have been right. I mean, I don't know. I would imagine if any place has a Dakota County, it would be... I imagine probably places that aren't one of the Dakotas also have Dakota counties. That would not surprise me because place names are meaningless in the US. But I would imagine that if anyone has a Dakota county, it would be the Dakotas. Okay, we're going off into the middle of nowhere now. Well-paved roads, though, so... "185th Street. Yes, we're clearly being followed. 185th Street suggests to me that we are near some sort of fairly large city. More schools that are inescapable. Tip of a trail map. There's got to be an interstate around here someplace. Still trying to figure out where the hell this place in Dakota County is. Still not finding any interstates, which is weird. 175th Street. Oh wait, election propaganda. No, it isn't election propaganda, it's become a tutor. That's useless. Yeah, that is something I do not know well. 173rd Street. Water towers can sometimes be sources of it. This one does not appear to be so. North Park. The pub. If I follow this road, there will be an interstate connection some. I may ask for that information, but I'd like to see if I can find it out. Wait, am I back where I fucking started? No, this is sort of a shopping center. Crystal Lake Education Center. Freeway time to downtown Mupples. There we go. Lakeville. Lakeville TARDIS. here we go. Ipava Avenue, or Ipava, or Ipava. Dakota Heights. Here we go. $49.94, 1.8 kilometers off. Okay, one more round, and after this, I'm gonna have a bit of a bio break. Okay, we got palm trees. I am 25 points short of a perfect score at this point. Oh, we got a little sign, don't we? I believe it's in Spanish. It's blurry though. Caution, no. No bathing. No washing of vehicle. No washing of clothing by district assembly. What if somebody other than the district assembly does it though? Okay, gonna go out on a limb here and say we're not in North America. Possibly India, possibly Africa. Africa. Definitely Africa. Okay. I'd say 80% certain we are someplace in Africa. It's an English-speaking African place. That does not narrow it down much. Palm trees suggest Central West Africa, possibly. Nigeria is a possibility. Ghana is a possibility. That sort of points me in the direction, I think, of Nigeria. Yeah, these names feel West African. I would not say that they are South African. Betoe. New Patriotic Party. Gerald Kente. Yeah, again. Very much thinking West Africa. Does not, I mean, definitely not South Africa. It's Ghana, yeah. That's what I thought. Okay. Ghana. And Kpetoe. Ebi. Watia. Short of South Africa, Ghana is one of the most common African places you get sent on GeoGuessr. Every once in a while you get North Africa, Tunisia, or I think I had Morocco once. Usually. I mean, I've had, let's see, had Kenya, had Botswana a few times, but South Africa is the big one, and it definitely was not South Africa. Oh, all sorts of like fundamentalist denominations have set up there. There's a whole like branch of the prosperity gospel preachers who are all over West Africa as well. Yama, not very easy, but way. Coverage tends to be best closer to the capitals. I'm gonna guess Kpetoe is someplace close to Accra. Oh, no. These KP and GB combinations, that isn't two letters pronounced in sequence. You form a K and a P or a G and a B at the same time. Agbojo. I think. I do not know any West African languages at all, so I'm probably not getting it quite right. Probably getting it quite wrong, in fact. I'm gonna say someplace near Accra. Okay. Kpetoe. Practically on the border. Nowhere. Okay. 141 kilometers. Practically in Togo. Okay. View results. 24,524 out of 25,000. Not bad at all. Okay, I'm going to take a quick bio break. Back in AMO.
Perfect. Okay, 3 of 4.
El hospital es...
Okay, we've leveled up and it is time to pick another language. Morfar är tröttare än vanligt. Maten är färdig. And let's see what we're doing when we get back. Greek. We're doing Greek when we get back. Benedese. Had a beautiful day. Fun fact. Turkish. Hello, Shakespeare. How you doing? Fun fact, in Spanish, the word for bishop in chess is alfil. And that actually comes from Arabic. Fil. The same word fil as this. Meaning elephant, because the bishop traditionally was to represent elephant units somehow. Similarly, in Russian, the word for bishop is skor, and that also means elephant. Okay. 10-159. Haven't made a huge dent in it, but we're getting there. Okay, gonna do some Chinese now. Night. Night. Come on. Yen. Yo. 5. Ducks are drinking wine. Bakbaz. Bakbaz? Okay, bakbaz is duck. Okay, I have now leveled up. Let's see what the XP situation is now. 10,340 out of 12,500. And as always, viewers can choose my next language for me just with a follow and a $5 to my Patreon. I buy a computer or quack. And here's another example. I like to point these out. For this word for or, but sounds vaguely like hogun and the hok in hogun in Korean or waku in Japanese, and that means it is the exact same kind of character. Oh, I see. This is dikhe ishai fui, which means do you want food? But yeah. Are you hungry? That kind of thing. How are the boys? Cine da boy. Posso Milao. Pote. When is it? Proteine. Udros. Protoculo. In the designated chicken-eating area, obviously.
Monsieur.
See.
Livre. Liwe, livre. Maciej. Yeah. Si. Wysoki. Maciej. Proč? Víte. Počkej. A. Si.
Oilen coginio panas.
Jacob. Hefed. 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 Hek. 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 Mwalimu.
This is Arabic. And it's from Mu'allim.
Juma ni mwalimu mke.
Oh, things to do with cat suns. Meow and the pictures of the fish. That's they were proud.
Söpö. Hupu. Yrittävät. Uraista. Omena.
Are in the city center. And it's got some interesting aspects to it.
여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까? 여자는 어느 나라에 있습니까?
Country is the
Okay. So, Giga M had a pretty interesting idea for a video to check out. Okay, see you later, Joe K. So, I think we're going to do that. Now, there are a few things to know about Afrikaans for people who aren't familiar with the language. It's the number 3 language in South Africa. It's also spoken a bit in Namibia and in Botswana as well. It has an undeservedly bad reputation as a result of it having been appropriated by colonizers. It is not a language primarily it was associated with the apartheid regime, but they're not the ones who developed it. It was first developed by Malay people who were enslaved by Dutch colonizers in South Africa. In fact, the first known writings that are definitely in Afrikaans were written in the Arabic alphabet, because that was the writing system that was used in Malaysia at the time. It was actually looked down on for quite a while by white society. They called it Kombuistaal, which means kitchen language. And then eventually white supremacists decided that it was useful to appropriate it, and that's why it has a bad rep outside of South Africa now. But most of the speakers aren't white, actually. It's 60 natives, Afrikaans native speakers are 60% not white. They're Malay and various other ethnic groups, and it's an interesting language, and it uses a lot of code switching. It's like a lot of languages that sort of develop from people who have been marginalized in one way or another. It is a very absorptive sort of language. It has a lot of code switching, and it does all sorts of interesting things. I speak Afrikaans. I quite like the language. Yeah, so this title of this video is, What Does the Rise of Afrikaans Teach Us About Decolonizing African Languages? It's from Africa as a Country, which is a channel I haven't actually watched before, but I've seen their posts on Facebook occasionally, and they've often seemed to be quite interesting. So let's check this out.
I have a question with actually on that. That's a good point that Mukoma makes. I think when they do the Malcolm X in Africa, you barely hear anybody talk about Tanzania and Kenya. I actually don't think they include it. They just do Ghana, Nigeria, Egypt. That's usually how that whole narrative is told. But I have a different type of question, which I think some of you have alluded to it, which is this, and I'll just to set it up. So in August 2017, Mahmoud Mamdani was invited to give the T.B. Davy lecture, just like a lecture about freedom of expression at the university.
Hello, Jamie. Welcome. Well, what I do is, what I've started to do in recent months is I stream on YouTube on Fridays on this channel, and then on Twitch on Saturdays. So, because you can't simul-stream if you're an affiliate on Twitch, so I don't do them at the same time, but I stream one YouTube stream and one Twitch stream each week. So tomorrow I will be on Twitch at the same time.
University of Cape Town. And at this lecture, this was the first time he had gone back to UCT, from when he left. He said, and I'm sort of paraphrasing from what people have summarized what he said, was that he said that African languages have remained folkloric, that they are not the bearer of scientific or scholarly tradition. And then he said there's one noteworthy exception on the African continent, that of Afrikaans.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, and I think this is an interesting
Okay,
point.
wait a second. Who is this guy? I didn't catch who he said it was.
Mahmoud Mamdani was invited.
That name is familiar, but it's not. Director of Makerere University from Uganda. Okay.
To give the T.B. Davy lecture, just like a lecture about freedom of expression at the University of Cape Town. And at this lecture, this was the first time he had gone back to UCT, from when he left. He said, and I'm sort of paraphrasing from what people have summarized what he said, was that he said that African languages have remained folkloric, that they are not the bearer of scientific or scholarly tradition. And then he said there's one noteworthy exception on the African continent, that of Afrikaans.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, and I think this is an interesting point he's trying to make. I'm throwing you a little zinger here. He said it is no exaggeration to say that Afrikaans represents the most successful decolonizing initiative on the African continent. He pointed out that it took half a century of a vast affirmative action program, in other words, state support for Afrikaans, to be lifted from the status of other African languages to the bearer of an intellectual tradition. And I want to point this out to you. Afrikaans have like a book culture, book prizes. It has university.
Yeah, I mean, very true. And it has a lot of really good novels. There's lots of great Afrikaans novels. I read a lot of like Afrikaans detective stories. They're really quite good. That is one of the main reasons ways I've learned like spoken Afrikaans.
Departments. It has endowed chairs, right? But again, this is a vast affirmative action program. The great irony, Mamdani sort of ended that part of his speech, was when he said, this success story was not emulated by the government of independent South Africa, because he was in South Africa and he was trying to talk to his South African audience. And he was saying this with reference to how other indigenous languages in South Africa were not lifted to that intellectual status. So it's a controversial thing then. This is about state.
I mean, and this is a problem that a lot of like minority and marginalized and colonized languages deal with. That often when they have that kind of a status, as a result of whatever, they often are not the languages where people customarily talk about things like, scholarly things and things like that. And as a result, they often lack the vocabulary. People like use a lot of loanwords and things like that. I mean, you see this with like Irish and Welsh as well. You see this with Yiddish, to just name a few examples. And so often you have this problem, and the result is, in order for them to truly kind of overcome that marginalization, they have to figure out one of various solutions to actually really become a language where people can talk about like science and philosophy and art and all that sort of thing without importing huge numbers of just like loanwords and stuff like that to do it.
State support, state investment in something. Again, from a complicated and soiled, if you want, project.
Yeah.
Is there something there?
Yeah, because of course, I mean, part of the reason it was state supported wasn't anything to do with decolonization. Quite the contrary. It was because white supremacists in South Africa decided to appropriate it and say this was theirs. And so they got, so there was a lot of state support for a while as a result of that had very little to do with the people who actually developed the language in the first place. So I mean, yeah, soiled is definitely a word for it.
Or because I heard you, and by the way, in the write-up they said the audience murmured either interest or like what. So
Yeah, because Cape Town, for people who aren't familiar with Afrikaans, is one of the main points of origin of Afrikaans. The Cape Provinces, one of the main places where Afrikaans is spoken today, and it is one of the main places where it started out. So he's talking about Afrikaans in really the heartland of the language.
how do you respond to that point by Mamdani?
So I don't know myself. I would say, and what I've found working with the Mabatu Kiswahili praise is that the work of decolonization cannot be left to artists, right? So at some level, you'll have to have governmental intervention. Like there's no going around that, right? So
Yeah.
so you definitely will have. I don't know. I think in Ghana they might have had during Nkrumah's time Department of African Languages, right, or Culture, whatever, the Ministry, right, of African Languages. But certainly we need a similar thing in countries like Kenya, where we have a department whose role is to support the growth of African languages.
Yeah, I mean, what I've heard, and I imagine we're going to hear more about this, is precisely the same sort of thing. Like Swahili, for example, in Kenya, in Uganda, is a language that is spoken, in everyday life. But, if people are talking about, like, scholarly academic topics, law, or, philosophy or art or, engineering or something like that, they switch over to English, which is kind of part of the problem, and it often results in sort of a permanent marginalization of the languages if something isn't done to shift that. Either, a vocabulary for these things is developed within the language, or some sort of, institutions that use the language for those purposes are developed.
There's no, the writer won't do it, right? But then also you'll need buy-in from publishers, writers themselves, and readers. What surprises me the most, okay, maybe not surprising. Well, okay, it's surprising in a way, is that the people who mostly advocate for English, right, are politicians and intellectuals, right?
Which would be people who often are very much within the sort of colonial class structure and have the most connection to that sort to a lot of colonial structures as well, and to foreign powers that are, having a neo-colonial relationship with African countries.
Right. In other words, those who have been educated and gone through the educational system, we're the ones who are always advocating for English, whether in our own individual capacities or intellectuals, or once we get into the government. Others, musicians. If you're a musician, you sing in your language. You're making a film. You can use your African languages and so on and so forth. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry to say I agree with Mamdani.
Yeah, I mean, I think the simple answer is, of course, African states should be supporting the development of all kinds of things in African local languages, right? Not just literatures, but education and many things, the study of the language. But the Mamdani example is weird only because Afrikaans was given the kind of the power that it has through this apartheid state, which had so much wealth by the exploitation of 85% of its population, right? And the complete dispossession of those people, and
massive and just massive cultural appropriation, which has been so successful that outside of South Africa, people who aren't familiar with the history, which is most people outside of South Africa, look at Afrikaans and they associate it with like verwoerd and die fucking racistische ouwen wat die land het gekoloniseer. It's like, so the fact that Afrikaans has actually managed to achieve this status really is, I mean, the term I think it was Sean Jacobs said was soiled. And it's like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it was done in a way that was not meant to actually benefit the people who originally developed it in the first place. And in fact, I mean, there is a very, there are very much differences in the use of Afrikaans as a result of that as well.
So, and post-independent African nations are not engaged in such exactly the same kinds of acts. I mean, we can debate country to country how the government is treating its population, but certainly it's not structured in the same way that apartheid was structured. And so that wealth is what enabled them to fund Afrikaans. And so it's about the distribution of resources and whether or not African states have the same amount of money to spend on such a small percentage of its large population.
Just before Bhakti answers or responds, I just want to point out, within Afrikaans, of course, let's say the project, let's say it was like a Creole Afrikaans. There was no apartheid, and it was this kind of sort of some like Suriname, like the language of, like, I don't know, the Antilles. It was that kind of, or it was Haitian Pidgin or something, that equivalent, and it was not a regime, as I said, soiled by apartheid. Then it becomes an interesting. But as a principle, the idea that the only way that you can undo the inequality between languages, you cannot rely on a private sector.
Yeah.
You can't rely on the corporate university. You have to, the state has to get involved to push that language, to make that the language of the courts, not just teaching it, but it has to be the language of the courts.
And you need to have, like, translations as well. I mean, I remember recently, one of the languages that has been the subject of major revival efforts within Britain is Cornish, which went extinct and is now now it is just extremely in danger. There are a tiny number of native speakers and everyday speakers in Cornwall. It is making a very slight comeback, and at one point somebody published, I think it was the Communist Manifesto in Cornish, and I remember a lot of discussion from English people, like, why do you need that? You know English, we have it in English already. And the point is, and this is what they're getting at here, what you need, if you want the language to become something beyond, something that is sort of, I guess the term that Mamdani used was folkloric, you've got to be able to experience these things through the medium of the language. In fact, I mean, especially in terms of actually when you've got a situation which isn't so much the situation with major African languages like isiZulu or Swahili or something like that, a situation of endangerment, the way you get native speakers, like fluent native speakers who can talk about a wide variety of subjects that are, of interest in their daily life in the language, is if they're experiencing those subjects through the medium of it. So, like, if you are, say, an isiZulu speaker, and your field is, I don't know, structural engineering or something like that. So you, like, in your daily life, you use isiZulu, but everything you read about structural engineering is in English or Afrikaans, then, which I don't know if that's the case. My knowledge of isiZulu is very limited. For all I know, they've got all sorts of stuff, but that is just an example, and it may be a bad one. But, then these things are going to be, like, kept separate. If you want to sort of elevate a language that has previously been sort of kept out of those spheres, you have to be able to experience all these sorts of subjects, all these sorts of discourse through the medium of the language. And yeah, I mean, the private sector is never going to alone be doing that, especially, I mean, within capitalism, it's just not, there's not going to be that kind of profit for it. Because translating all that sort of thing, translating major literary works and things like that, for example, and major scholarly works into languages in which they've not previously been written, I mean, translating that stuff already is expensive because there's a lot of it. But then doing it in a language where you're often going to have to invent the words. Yeah, where that is not a profitable endeavor. So yeah, I mean, within capitalism, the only way that's going to work is if there's some kind of like state support or something like that. The private sector is not going to bite because it's going to be a money loser.
It has to be language of intellectual debate. It has to be on TV. Otherwise, it's not going to succeed. And like Mokoma was sort of saying, you're still just going to have like African intellectuals speaking to each other in English.
Yeah.
Not just like on a globe, not just on a continental level, but within their states, and leaving tons of people out of like the public discourse around like, what is the country now, or what is the future of this place.
So
No, I agree with everything everyone said. Hey, Sean. No, I was just saying it makes me think of India because we are forcibly trilingual there at all times. For those who can afford an English education, you always have to afford it. You have to also have Hindi and whatever is the language of the state, and a lot of culture, TV, all of that. I mean, there's a lot of forcing certain languages as a national issue that keeps happening.
Yeah, I mean, like English has very much the same sort of status in India as in Africa, in that like a lot of professions are conducted in it. Like, I mean, like law for the most part is done in English. So, mostly because it's just sort of been decided that it is easier than putting everything into like literally about 800 different languages. But it does create that sort of situation where a lot of actually very important discussions are discussed in a language that literally is foreign to a significant portion of the population, and that they may not even be conversant in.
So, the model that Mamdani is talking about is in the end the right model. The problem is that it's Afrikaans, which comes with a very fraught history, I guess. So
yeah. So and what is interesting about English itself is that English used to be treated like an African language in England itself, right? So it's not until in the beginning English was seen as a vulgar language. It was seen as a language for peasants.
Yeah.
Right. It's actually not until state intervention. And this was because in the 13th, 14th century, the British realized it's sort of silly to be fighting the French and others using their language, right? So they needed a national identity. So English.
This is also a big part of how U.S. English ends up with these characteristic spellings and things, because I mean, there's a great book about this called "Inventors of the Promised Land" by Lawrence Friedman. It's out of print, but you can find it really cheaply used in some places. I got a copy for like 89 cents about, 10 years ago. But, I mean, it talks about exactly this sort of thing amongst the sort of colonial ruling class in the newly founded U.S., where they were like, we just fought a war to be independent of Britain, and yet all we're doing, our entire culture revolves around them, and maybe it shouldn't? And so they had to like go and try to invent some sort of national identity that supplanted that.
English was picked up and cleaned up, and standardized and so on and so forth. So actually, the irony is that the growth of English itself has the best instruction for African language. Yeah, I mean, and then of course, when English came to the continent through colonization, it did to African languages what was done to it, right? So the African languages that became vulgar. The African languages could not carry culture. They couldn't carry science and so on and so forth. There's a term I use in my book from Adam Beach, another literary critic. He uses the term the English metaphysical empire, right? To capture what Imperial English then wanted to do to the rest of the world, which is to become the standard of aesthetics, the standard of I don't know, the standard of beauty, whether in literature or in science and so on and so forth. But English itself, yeah, it had to go through that battle.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Less about Afrikaans than I was expecting it to be. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is a problem that is faced by a lot of marginalized languages, precisely because that marginalization often affects what subject matter they're used for. And so they either go and develop their own like specialized vocabulary so they can be the carriers of the mediums for intellectual discussions and things like that they'd previously been excluded from, or they do various other things. But I mean, if you don't have that stuff being carried out through the medium of the language is always going to be sort of on the margin of these things. Now, let's see. We could watch some more videos, we could play some more GeoGuessr. I'm going to be streaming for another half hour roughly. What's everybody's pleasure, chat? We got some videos from a channel that has decided to take an extremely petty approach to doing English language learning content, which it basically seems to be finding non-native creators who do stuff about learning English and then like grammar policing the hell out of them. We've got let's see. Aprendiendo acento chileno con América Paz by Daniel Fernand. Colombian Spanish. Oh god, yes. I learned the world's hardest and easiest languages by Xiaoma. How to talk like an Italian. Do this. Stefano something or other, I think his name was. This is how fluent Korean learners talk. So, what do you think? We could play some more GeoGuessr, we could look at another of these videos, we could look at the extremely, the petty-ass channel that I was just talking about. Where, like, they've also specifically focused in on one particular channel and have just decided to aggressively grammar police her. But so, what's everyone think? GeoGuessr, more videos, what do you reckon? Okay, well, maybe we've got time to do a bit of both. Here we go, checking out Mr. Petty.
Hello, welcome to English for Everyone, where we practice real-life American English. Today we're going to learn to avoid some important mistakes and learn about vocabulary.
And we're going to do it by, like, grammar policing lingua marina. We'll do a little bit of this. Maybe if it's boring, we can switch over. I'm cool either way.
At the airport. So let's get started. First, this is not correct.
So today, I'm going to take you to the airport. I'm going to show you how the process works. And I'm going to teach you vocabulary.
Like, I mean, already, first of all, let's just point something out. Correcting people's mistakes, correcting people's grammar and stuff like that, that's not how anyone learns grammar. That is not how language acquisition works. This is a pointless activity. So, seriously, the way, if you want to know what helps acquire grammar, what studies have actually shown is the most effective way to acquire grammar, it's pleasure reading in your target language. That is what has proved effective. Error correction, having people, like, correct your mistakes has not been shown to be particularly helpful. And this, I know this one because I watched a video that was reacting to this video. This is how petty we're talking about.
That's associated with traveling.
The word is not pronounced process.
Yes, it fucking is. That's an alternative pronunciation. A lot of people pronounce it that way.
It's pronounced process. Use the short ah like hot and stop. Process.
Okay. Also, just this would... Dude, take some Metamucil. But, like, I mean, this is just also, let me just say, wrong. Because, I mean, even, within North American English, a lot of people say process. I mean, especially in Canada, but also in the US, it is not this hard and fast. This is just such a fucking petty thing to focus in on.
Again, not process like know and go, but process like hot.
Like na and ga.
And stop. It's an open sound. Process. Example, doing your taxes is a long process.
Like, watching this video is a painful process. Or a painful process. Because both are actually right.
Let's practice. Is doing your taxes a long process?
Thank you for, like, nodding to give us the answer as well. Like, this is just, whenever I see, like, this sort of English teaching, one of the things about specifically people who teach English as a foreign language is they are less likely than teachers of other languages to have ever had the experience of successfully acquiring a language other than their native language. And the result of that is that they are more likely to buy into a lot of the bullshit and just really bad methodologies that exist for teaching languages because they've never actually done it themselves. So they've never experienced it from the learner's perspective. And so they don't have any, like, reality check on methods that are, like, at this point you can say scientifically demonstrated to be useless.
That's right. Doing your taxes is a long process. This is also not correct.
So great. I brush my teeth.
Oh, they gave you a toothbrush?
Yes, everything. Like even the household. Like this is for
Machalka.
And non-brushing.
We don't know
That's
the English
great.
word.
Wow.
Like a scrub, whatever. Wow.
Like a scrub, whatever? It has.
He don't want no scrubs, apparently. A scrub is a guy that don't get no love from English for everybody.
Has a name. It's called a loofah. Pronunciation. Use the
Like, this is so fucking petty. Like, they specifically said they didn't know what the name of the thing was. Also, loofah is a trademark, just so you know.
long oo like moon and soon. Loofah.
Somebody who just heard you say it doesn't necessarily need you to also say that again.
And then the short sound, relaxed
Like, okay. Yeah, this is like... This is... Yeah, exactly. Like, nobody... This is not how anybody learned... Like, English speakers in chat, correct me if I'm wrong, you did not have a monotone dude being aggressively corrective towards you. That is not how you acquired English, I would imagine. It wasn't how I acquired English. I speak it fine.
Loofah. This is a loofah. It has a name.
And the thing is, what he's doing here, actually, what they demonstrated there, the two of them, is actually a useful skill. Because often, even in your native language, you run into situations where you're just blanking on the word. Maybe it's because it's not a subject you talk about a lot. Maybe you're just forgetting the word, you're under stress, you're tired, all sorts of reasons. And being able to talk around a word that you're blanking on is an important skill. That's a good thing to know how to do. And, like, instead of, like, having dead eyes here go, no, that is called a loofah. Ooh as in screwed and as in fuck. That is not a scrub. A scrub gets no love from me. Like, nobody learns English from this shit. Like, seriously, if you're an English learner and you happen upon this and you're watching this on the VOD or whatever, do not torture yourself with this crap. Don't. It's a waste of time. It isn't helping. It just makes you feel inadequate, and actually, that is not only not helpful, it is harmful, because stress is toxic to language acquisition. And feelings of inadequacy cause stress.
Or if you have a long one, like this is a loofah back scrubber. See? You scrub your back.
Is it? Is that what that's called? It's not, I mean, I didn't know that there was a name for it in the first place. I don't think I've ever actually seen one like that. But...
back. It's a loofah back scrubber. Or you can just call it a loofah. But it's not a scrub whatever. It has a name.
Thank you for sticking up for the poor, disrespected loofah back scrubber there. It has a name. Don't dehumanize this inanimate object by denying it its name. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it's not how you acquire pronunciation either. Like, you acquire pronunciation, I mean, the centerpiece of language acquisition. There are different ways to do it, but this always has to be present. Compelling, comprehensible input. This input is comprehensible, for example, to somebody who is on sort of an intermediate level of English, I suppose. I mean, it is compelling in the sense that you kind of don't want to look away from it. You can't look away from it because, Jesus Christ, what the hell is he doing here? Why is he doing this? Why is he talking to me like this? Why is he looking at me like this? Like the fucking creepy ass eyes? But, I mean, having somebody harp on about your inadequacies is not... like, it is not a method of acquiring a language that is effective.
Example, I have a loofah What about you?
Wow, that's such a great example. That's so memorable. I have a loofah, what about you? And I don't need to think about this motherfucker's loofah. I don't need to think about this guy scrubbing himself.
Do you have a loofah?
What the fuck? Well,
Very good. This is also not correct.
One of the most common questions I get from you guys in my DMs on Instagram is, what means off to? Because I'm always like, off to Munich, off to Italy, off to San Francisco. So this off to is like, I am off to, which means I'm going to.
I cannot say what means off to.
yes, you can. You just did. If you're going to be petty and fucking prescriptivist, I'm going to too. You clearly can say it. You would prefer that people do not say it. It is not considered standard English grammar. And I believe what she was doing there is she was quoting people who may indeed have said it that way. I will admit, I was actually expecting him to maybe give her shit about off to and be like, this is not how we express the concept of going to places in proper North American English as spoken in Peoria. Yeah, I mean, like, what is the... this is not educational content. This is him doing the world's most low-effort shit off of somebody else's video. Like, I mean, is this how you do... This guy has a ton of subscribers, which I do not understand. Like, is this how you're supposed to do language learning content? Do I just find a non-native speaker making videos that are more interesting than mine and go, you cannot say wanna. Hey is for horses. Yeah.
If I'm asking a question, I have to use a question structure. What does off to mean? This is a correct question. So the question, what does off to mean? Example, we're off to the movies.
Like, he may be a perfectly nice guy other than this, but he just makes me want to smack him.
It means we're going to the movies. I'm off to work. It means I'm going to work.
Which, like, okay, but I guess this is, like, his excuse for having that in there because actually it was just a very petty thing that he just did. But why not? Because he could just watch a little bit longer and see if she explains it correctly, which she probably does, because her English is actually quite good, I would have to say. Her pronunciation, which he likes to harp on a lot, is actually, it takes a lot of skill and effort and time to really get to that kind of a level as a non-native speaker, especially, as phonetically different coming from as phonetically different a language as Russian. He could have given her one, because she almost certainly explained that correctly, because she's using it correctly.
That's what it means. So remember the question structure. What does off to mean? And the answer, it means you're going somewhere. That's what it means.
He's like the Caleb Maupin of the English as a second language fucking cinematic universe, this guy. Yeah, what means... it's like... Yeah, it is not a standard... It is not, considered grammatical within English. That's true. But, but this is not how anyone learns grammar. This is just not how that works. It is completely useless for language acquisition, and apparently 60% of their videos are just them grammar policing lingua marina. It's like, I mean, there are so many better ways. Like what I'm doing right now is better language, you know, for English learners this is better content because potentially, I mean, potentially this is compelling to people with a particular interest. For example, an interest in like being in like slagging off English for everyone. I don't know. But, you know, you are acquiring the language. If you are an English learner, you are acquiring the language by listening to somebody talk, me or somebody else. You are acquiring the language by just reading stuff that you're interested in. You are, if you feel that you are not being helped by somebody sort of laser focusing in on your grammatical shortcomings, that's because that's not you. That's not a you problem. That is a problem with the method. There is we've got 40 years of research on what does work for grammar acquisition. This ain't it. We cannot say this ain't it. Ain't is not a word. Fuck off.
Let's practice the question. Ask me the question. Ask me what off to means.
Like, this is useless, though. This is a useless exercise. Grammar exercises in general, useless. There is no evidence that they are helpful. This whole skills-based approach to language acquisition, it has no empirical foundation. It's nonsense.
It means you're going somewhere. I'm off to work. I'm going to work. This is also
You
not
already
correct.
told us
We're
that.
now heading to the airport on a Tesla, which is very San Francisco, very Silicon Valley style.
I cannot say we're heading to the airport on a Tesla. I cannot use the preposition on.
Yes, you just... yes, you can. You just did. Yeah, I mean... in versus... see, I mean, the thing is, there's so much you could do on in versus on in English, because it is weird. I mean, there's that classic George Carlin bit about air travel where he says, you know, get on the plane, get on the plane. Fuck you, I'm getting in the plane. There seems like a lot of less wind in there. Because we have a weird and idiosyncratic relationship in the language to this. And I, as a native speaker who is more of a language nerd than, like, probably 99% of the world's population, do not have an immediate explanation for why it is that we would not say on a Tesla unless we're actually on top of the thing. Because there's some vehicles, like airplanes, where if you're inside the thing, you still say on. Or I'm on a train to Albuquerque. But you're inside the thing, fortunately. If you're on the train, again, it'd be a bit windy. It is actually a complicated thing, and one of the really annoying things about the way he's doing this is that he does not acknowledge that. Because this is a confusing aspect of English that nobody acquires through rules, because most people have absolutely no idea. Most people could not formulate the rule. I don't even know if linguists who have managed to work out exactly what distinction we're making with in versus on here. I've never looked it up, but I mean, the way that he does this, with this sort of berating, condescending sort of tone, completely ignores the fact that actually this is a complicated thing. This is not, and in fact, this is not an easy thing to do, an easy distinction to make. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. On a bus. On a plane, on a train, on a truck. No, on a truck suggests that you're in the bed of the thing. It's like, I mean, see, that's weird. That doesn't make any sense because it does not. Like, yeah, I mean, so if I were going to do content on the in-on distinction as it relates to vehicles, the fact that I have to actually phrase it that way already tells you that we're dealing with a confusing area. The first thing that you would have to do, just out of respect to your viewers, is acknowledge actually this is a hard thing. This is not something, you're not bad at English just because you don't immediately work this one out. Because you could ask native speakers to formulate the rule and they couldn't, even though they're applying it correctly all the time.
I have to say in because it's a car.
Like, see, he just says that. Like, that's just obvious. I have to say in because it's a car. You know, because like that just that doesn't make any fucking sense. Okay, you're gonna try to formulate. Okay, come on. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. The thing is, you really can't teach it like this anyway. You can't teach it this, and I think I understand the reason that she said on there. Because I believe the rule that she has managed to come up with through the various examples that she has heard is that it's on when you are not the driver, when you are the passenger. Because, you know, we're on a plane, you know, as passengers. We're on a train as passengers. We're on a taxi. No, we're in a taxi. Fuck off. I mean, that's ridiculous. But we're on a bus, again, as passengers. And so she says, okay, it must be on because I'm in the in the back seat. Somebody else is driving me. Somebody who perhaps is paid to do the driving. I would imagine that is the rule she's come up with. Yeah. Well, I'm just kind of trying to reverse engineer the thinking, because it's also true that in her native language you would say on.
You can use on when you talk about a bus, on a train, on a plane. But if you talk about a car, we have to use in.
Why? Yeah, like...
So it's correct to say...
I mean, but also, a Tesla isn't a car, it's an IED with wheels.
We're heading to the airport in a Tesla.
You got a fucking prescriptive grammar rule for when your mode of transport is actually an IED with wheels, Kevin?
Example. They're heading to the airport in a Tesla.
That's not... Well, like, what's the point of an example that you already just harped on for 5 minutes? Like, I mean, this is clearly scripted. He's reading a script. Why not come up with an interesting example? Why not come up with a funny and memorable example? You could make your example anything.
Let's practice. Are they heading to the airport in a Tesla?
That's a shitty practice sentence as well, because it's a yes-no question. The answer is yes, and now he's gonna do that nodding thing. That, like, fucking... I did not watch this before. And I've not actually watched much of his content. Just a few clips from a thing from, like, English with Dave, I think it's called, who was talking about, like, their obsession with lingua marina. But he's that predictable.
That's right. They're heading to the airport in a Tesla. Not on a Tesla. It's a car. Use in.
But here's the thing, that's not a good rule either, because the thing is there are situations where you would definitely say on a Tesla. Let's say you were, for some reason, on the roof of the thing. Or, you know, on the bonnet. Then you would definitely say you are on a Tesla. it would sound weird because you're not supposed to ride them that way. It would probably occasion follow-up questions. But yeah, if you were on the roof of the car, you would say on.
This is also not correct.
We are looking for a gift on my doctor in Germany.
I cannot say we're looking for a gift on my doctor in Germany.
I don't think that's what she said. Yeah, exactly. Like, you could start out by acknowledging this is an area where English makes no sense. Validate people's perception that this doesn't make any fucking sense. It is about time for me to wrap up for today. I will be back tomorrow on Twitch. At the same time, let me just say thank you for everyone who joined. It's been a good stream. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And if you're enjoying the stream, please consider contributing to the stream and my other projects with a tip, which will help fund the stream and the Inessa Amal translation project, and also just help me cover my expenses and stuff, which helps me create new things. And also just, sort of generally stay alive. So that is very much appreciated. I understand if, people can't because it's, it's hard times all around, but it's that much more appreciated when people do. I will be back tomorrow, and I hope to see you then. And for anyone who's new and not already in the Discord, let me just drop the link for you to join the Discord. Have a good evening, and I will see you tomorrow.